We are on location. We are at the historic Warrenton Courthouse here in Fauquier County, where we are at the 100th consecutive Black Lives Matter Vigil for Action. And this is a very special occasion because they have been working on these vigils ever since the Freedom Summer of 2020. And they've been working here every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 10:45 a.m. here at the historic Warrenton Courthouse. We'll be meeting with the organizers. We'll be also talking with the chief as well. And we'll also be hearing a special speech from Dr. Ellsworth Weaver as well. So wherever you join us, and we're going to have this very historic event as we are to put this together and bring this to you, a special event. So we're looking forward. We're going to show you some of the signs, some of the visuals, and meet with several individuals for this very special event. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. We are here live at the historic Warrenton District here in Fauquier County with the 100th Black Lives Matter Vigil. Now, this started to take place during the Freedom Summer of 2020 after the tragic murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and so many countless other black people at the hands of police. And so what we want to do today is give you a visual of what's been going on here since its inception. And so we're going to be taking a visual here at the courthouse, meet with some of the activists, also talk with some of the organizers, as well as meet with Dr. Ellsworth Weaver, who will be the guest speaker inside the courthouse. So come with us if you will, and we want to take a real quick visual here. And I want to introduce you to some of the organizers here. As a matter of fact, take a visual if we could, and some of the people who have so many activists and wonderful people here in the community who are showing up with signs that have been here consistently in support of justice. And one of the things we just want to kind of highlight for you, you see some of the signs. You had young people, all kind of diverse representation here at the courthouse this morning. And one of the things that they've been really signifying is the necessity for justice for all lives. I want to take you something, if you could pan in here real quick, some of the smaller signs here in addition. You're talking about some of the stories, especially with black farmers as well. And I want to kind of take you with this. Follow me. And I want you to kind of show you with some of the signs that we have here. Take a look at some of the information, really in addition, some of the actions that they're seeking here in this area. Talking about some of these black farmers that we know have been excluded from federal programs and receiving aid in addition to that as well. So also, what we want to do is take a little look at some of the other signs that have been produced as well, and also signs for action. We're going to take a look at this one as well, talking about the information of knowing history. So if you see as the activists are waving, and they're waving different signs as well. And I want to take a look particularly at this sign. If you could, ma'am, if you could just flip that sign around as well. Absolutely. Thank you very much. If you can answer it as well here with some of the black soldiers as well who fought bravely but still receiving assistance from the GI Bill as well. So you see it's a contrast. And then I want to take you here as well. This is some of the other signs. They've had their different photos and pictures of those who have lost their lives, and sadly, at the hands of brutal justice, so by the police and other systems in the justice system. So these are some of the things that we really want to emphasize and really talk about, silence, that people are speaking out against injustice, speaking out against racism, speaking out against inequality, not just for Black lives here in Warrenton, but all over the United States and beyond. And so we want to kind of show some more of the signs here in our educational systems as well. And what we also want to emphasize is one of the things they've been doing consistently with this justice is getting people to sign up. And we'd like to thank the Fauquier NAACP also for putting this all together, as well as the League of Women Voters, in addition to really getting a lot of participation, especially as we're going to head towards the midterms. So let's continue to just talk about some of the signs and things that they have here as well, as you see here from our legislators. And I want to kind of bring it down here. We'll stop right here, if we may. And just you see more of the activists. And what is really good is that you're seeing different ages, there are different groups, different individuals who are coming and representing within the community. That being said, also, I do want to pan out that if you're hearing some of the voices as well, we want to kind of pan out to the other side here. And you are seeing there, as usual with these protests, there's always counter-protesters as well. And these are protesters who have also come out supporting the All Lives Matter and Black the Blue movements as well. And one of the things is that they've been speaking out consistently. And one of the things that we've been told is that they've had this division across the street, also a division of ideas as well, idea of concepts. So we'll be going over there and showing with them as well. But we want to kind of bring it back to center here. And I also want to kind of show you some of the sponsors who have been putting this wonderful, these Vigils for Actions together, if we may. And here you see some of the signs of Vigil for Action, and we want to kind of, again, show some of the wonderful people, one of the sponsors who have supported the Vigil from its inception and really brought it to fruition. And you see so many individuals, so many organizations coming together, so many community-minded people taking time out of a busy Saturday to make this all possible. So like the Northern Piedmont Chapter, Fauquier County Branch, the League of Women Voters, Afro-American History Association of Fauquier County, coming to the table with the Northern Shenandoah Valley, as well as the Piedmont Race Amity Project as well. So there's so many organizations that have come out, lended their voices for support, and their time and resources to make that possible. So many have asked, well, how do we go and become a part of this process? And so if you can follow me, we want to come here to the table and meet with some of the League of Women Voters as well. And you may hear behind us, you're hearing a lot of honking going on. Those who are honking both support and for those who are supporting the counter-protesters. And we're going to get a shot here of the League of Women Voters who are here this morning as one of the amazing sponsors. And we'd like to thank them for helping to bring this all together. So also, as we're going through this more event, we want to emphasize that one of the things that's been really important about this centennial moment is what it's done is giving people an opportunity to speak out. Now, this was something that was prior to the Freedom Summer 2020 virtually unheard of. But because of people who were inspired, people who knew that action had to be taken, they lended their voices, come here to a place that is, like we term, very homogenous in its demographical nature. That being said, you're seeing so many people who are now coming out letting their voices in support. So if you'll follow me as well, and what we want to do is get ready to talk with some of the organizers. We want to meet with Scott Christian and Debra Copeland, and they're here with us right now. We want to talk with them a little bit about how they put this all together. And also want to emphasize, as we're going to talk again with Dr. Ellsworth Weaver as we get closer. He's the guest speaker this morning. So I want to meet with some of the organizers here who have been so gracious to talk with us this morning. This is Scott Copeland and Debra Christian. Thank you. What we want to do is emphasize that there are people who want to talk more about this event as well. So thank you all so much. Good morning. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and thank you for having us. We're honored. Absolutely. So can you talk with us, if you may, Scott, about what it took to put this event together and how it all came to fruition?
I'm sort of a natural organizer, so the actual mechanics were pretty easy. But what was so important was how galvanized people were and wanted to gather. And that's what's been such a surprise. 2 years after we started, we're still averaging about 40-some people who really seem committed. That's really the amazing part of it.
Absolutely. Debra, if you may, can you talk a little bit about what it meant after the first vigil, and how you were able to get that roundabout support and some of the organizations who were able to lend their voices to this cause?
Well, I'm a member of Fauquier NAACP, and that organization, along with 5 other local organizations, sponsor the event. And as Scott mentioned to you earlier when we were talking, a young woman named Jasmine Morton sort of got this off the ground in June of 2020 after the murder of George Floyd. She just sort of, it was sort of an organic gathering that happened, and that was the seed that has grown this beautiful thing that you're witnessing today. And it means a lot to me because there's so much going on in our country right now. I mean, so many things that we need to address and correct and heal and repair, but we also need to nurture ourselves too as we fight that fight. And when we gather here on Saturday mornings, even in spite of counter-protesters who can sometimes be pretty ugly, there's such a fellowship here and a feeling of solidarity, and it's become a very meaningful event in our community.
And speaking of which, in a community that's really more homogenous in its demographical nature, so how are you able to get that kind of support from the locals in order to come out and be as consistent as they've been?
Well, we may look homogenous, but that's the thing. When you scratch the surface, you find that there are a lot of different views in Fauquier County. And in some ways, I think that's what the Vigil's done, is giving people a place to gather and feel supported and not like they're isolated, when, as you say, the perception is everybody's thinking and behaving and voting the same, but not the case.
Absolutely, and today we will have Dr. Ellsworth Weaver speaking as well. So what does it mean to have such a distinguished speaker coming and speaking his voice today?
Well, I love Dr. Weaver. It means a lot, and you'll see when you get to hear him speak later today. He has he's sort of our inspiration, our leader, and he's
really sort of almost a gentle giant. Because you listen to him, like the deacon he is a talk of love and pulling together. At the same time, there's this fire there for justice, and you feel them both, and that's what's so remarkable. Not to mention, he's in his 80s,
yeah.
And the rest of us are in awe at his energy and his wit at this age.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And if I may ask as well, is this is a vigil for action, and so what are some of the actions we would like to see happen as a result of this vigil?
well, on the local level, which is more our focus for this, I'd like to see more local action, more awareness. A lot of people vote without an awareness of how their vote is affecting other people, maybe people not like them. And I think we're helping to raise awareness about issues on a local level.
And I would add that the vigil is just this 45-minute witness, but the idea is it's really kind of a portal or a doorway to joining one of the 6 organizations. So Sunday through Friday, you join an organization that has the committees, the structure, the mission, and that's where you take action. So that's the sort of ideas that we are encouraging people to participate that way.
Wonderful. Scott Christian, Debra Copeland, thank you all very much for your support, and thank you for what you're doing in the community. Fantastic. We are back, and joining us right now is Mr. Joe Washington. He has been a participant here at the Black Lives Matter Vigil for Action. Mr. Washington, thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's a pleasure to have you here, sir.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, sir.
Thank you for coming out.
Thank you. And so, sir, if you could just talk a little bit about what brought you to this vigil and what it means to be a participant in the fight for justice.
Well, basically what brought me out was there was a need for folks to come out and just keep in mind that Black Lives Matter. I've been out here for about 90-some weeks, and the people out here, as you can see, are a mixed bag. It's a completely mixed bag, and everyone gets along, and no one really knew each other. And so from this, we're unified in the fact that the systemic racism still exists, and that Black Lives Matter, not the corporate entity, but Black Lives Matter, period. So that's why I'm out here, and we get along, and we're just want to make it apparent and aware to passersby that we have to keep this in mind because there's still inequality.
Absolutely, Mr. Washington. And also, since the vigils have began, have you seen a change, especially here in the pursuit of justice here in Fauquier County?
There's been some talks. There's been communication back and forth. It's slow, but it's picking up steam. And we have people coming about, walking, who passersby come to ask us questions. Some agree, some don't agree, and some pick up signs, and they've been out here as well.
Wonderful. And what does that mean, particularly to you, sir? And you say you're seeing a diverse representation of voices to come out in the community and be able to speak out on something. What does that mean to you personally?
I think what it really means is that we're looking at people as human beings, not as a color, not as anything else, but who they are, who God created. And it lifts me up to see so many people out. As you can tell, we have people on the other side who don't agree with it, but we still love them as well. And we love the group here, and we love that we're unified in one cause, that we're going to lift you up and keep this going. Because once we stop it, we have to start back up, and it's going to be harder. So we just enjoy the camaraderie and what's shared here.
Absolutely. Mr. Washington, as you stated, the vigils come afterwards, every Saturday, but there's action that has to be taken. So what are some things that need to be done by the legislature and some of the community as well?
Well, we have to keep in mind that there's laws on the books, old laws of Virginia and in the country that we have to look at. We really have to look at and start to change some things because it's a matter of looking at people as human beings, not as what they did 400 years ago as property, as cattle, as a piece of property. But we have to keep in mind that each one of us makes this place and makes this world a better place. So I think we look at legislation, whether it be state, whether it be federal, and try to move that forward, and also have grassroots movements to enlighten people. And we need education. Education is the biggest thing because there's so much out there that I'm still learning and I'm surprised and shocked by. And so we have to have some type of education and training that really addresses the whole U.S. history, not a portion of it.
Absolutely. Mr. Joe Washington, thank you very much for your time, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, sir. You too as well. Thank you very much. Like I say, we're seeing so many different voices, and we're going to try to even get some of the voices, hopefully, of the counter-protesters as well. We want to be able to show that while there are many who do support, and we have more support than not, but there are those who do see things differently. And so we're going to get a chance to really talk more, and then we want to kind of get a shot here, you see again from stretching all the way from down the street. We first came here this morning, there was only 2 people. Now it's so many people, so much support has come here in the community to support the 100th Black Lives Matter Vigil for Action. This is the 100th one. So we want to get a chance to talk with somebody who is a pillar of this community. And so I want to kind of bring it over to Pastor Vincent Holland here. Shout out Baptist Church. Pastor, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Yes, sir. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you today, sir?
I'm good. I'm good.
Wonderful, sir. So can you just talk about what it means to be here, to be a part of the Black Lives Matter Vigil for Action, and especially here in Fauquier County?
In my life, it means everything. You know, I've always had a high interest in civil rights and civil justice and social justice, and to be a part of something like this is powerful. I think because the grassroots of it is we're coming from all walks of life, coming together, trying to make a difference. And to see people of diverse backgrounds care enough to say that my friend Vinny, his Black Life matters. And when they could be home doing something different, and to have people come together and say, you know, we recognize the importance that we need to get along because we're missing out when we don't get along.
Absolutely, sir. And so what has it been like, as you've seen, you say the groundswell of support as well, and have you seen there have been any change since these vigils began 2 years ago?
I think there's been more conversation. If anything, I'm not sure of economic impact or social impact, but I do know more people are paying attention to ask questions, like, why are you there? What's really going on? I thought we didn't have any problems here. Are you just stirring up such situations? And so now we see people being challenged with having to come up and say, let's have a conversation, rather than just assuming that everything's okay. And I think that's put people in an uncomfortable position, but we know that friction causes growth. And so I think that's where the opportunity is going to come, is this friction is causing people to re-examine themselves, and some of them are feeling some contrition or guilt, while others are kind of feeling anger and pushback, and then others are feeling hopeful and engaged. So we have a combination of emotions going on, and I'm really excited to see this group especially. I'm not able to be here every single Saturday, but when I'm here, the energy is still high. They've been confronted verbally and even physical proximity, people getting in their face yelling, and yet they persevere. But we both all know they don't have to. This doesn't affect their household. It affects their community, but they could go back and close their doors and say, what are black people? They got it all right. But instead they say, no, there is something wrong, let's fix this.
Absolutely, sir. And what does also mean, Pastor, when you're seeing especially a lot of young people being here as well, so different generations, it's important, and picking up that mantle to let their voices be heard as activists. What does that mean to you personally?
Powerful, because it's the example that I've seen. I go back to Medgar Evers and following through and coming through the ranks. The young people were involved, and that's when the difference was made, because a lot of us old people, we don't necessarily have the energy to go do all of this. But if the young forget and the young don't do, we'll just slide back into complacency, and you slide back into complacency, you now can be disallowed, and you can be disavowed and shut down. So seeing young people engaged lets us know that the future is bright, because when we get older, they'll be on the streets pushing for us, helping save us, and that's encouraging. I think you have to have the legacy. If you don't have the legacy in any movement, it's not going to succeed. We've been silent pretty much since '68 after Robert Kennedy was killed. The movement kind of went to a quell, and what we've seen is all these old things creep back in. We're seeing the new Jim Crow laws coming in, but now they've dressed them up because they've gotten wiser as well. And so we have to have the young people recognize that this isn't done, because as long as there's economics involved and people can look and make a difference, because it's easy to differentiate what you can see. They can't see your spirit or your soul, but they can see your skin. As long as they can do that, we have to keep reminding them that there is a person under that skin. And that's the important part. The young people need to know that and do that.
Absolutely. And finally, Pastor, if I may, just for yourself, what do you hope becomes the result of these vigils for action?
The same hope I had for myself when I was younger in the 60s, when we went through all the loss and all the fight. I thought by the time I got this age, we wouldn't be doing this. I would like for my kids, when they get this age, they don't have to be doing this. And at least my grandkids, somewhere in the legacy of my line, that they don't have to do this. And I would rather be here now doing this so they don't have to.
Pastor Vincent Holland, thank you so much for your time, sir, and for all you do.
Have a great
I'm honored.
day.
Bless you. Bless you. Yes, thank you. Thank you. And so we're continuing on here with the 100 Black Lives Matter Vigil for Action. We're going to be hearing later on from Dr. Ellsworth Weaver. And so I want to bring someone else here along and they say, good morning. Good morning. How are you? Mary, thank you for joining us this morning. Can you just talk about what it means to be here at the 100 Black Lives Matter Vigil for Action?
I never thought it would last this long, but I'm glad that it did. I was one of the founding members, and I'm a member of 3 of the organizations that are our sponsors. We got into a discussion. You know, this was only supposed to last till the election in 2020, and we had a meeting after the election, and it's like, should we keep going? And my answer at that time is we keep going until racism is a thing of the past, which means I'm probably going to be here for the rest of my life, but that's okay. I think the value of this is that we have a lot of people that supported Black Lives Matter in a sort of cerebral way, but now they're out here. And I think that's very empowering for the Black community here in Fauquier County. And I think we're developing relationships across racial lines. I think there's more understanding. I think the people that have been driving by are getting more and more vocal. I mean, you know, these guys are getting a few attaboys, but we way outnumber them. And I think we're getting the message out that Black lives do matter.
Absolutely. And I want to talk about your sign here for just a moment, because you talked about, you know, learning from lessons of the past and learning the history. And why is it so important that we learn from our history so we can change the future?
Let me tell you a little bit about my history. When I was growing up, we didn't have a whole lot of money. My dad died when I was 4 years old. And I thought back then we didn't own slaves. Well, wrong answer. I got my DNA tested. I had always known about one answer who rented an enslaved person. Now I'm at about 1,400 enslaved people owned by my ancestors. I found out some horrendous stories by looking at the wills of my ancestors. Now, what I was taught in school was that, you know, happy slaves and treated them like family.
Right.
Okay, well, here's how my family treated them like family. I have a 5th great grandfather from Bloomfield in Loudoun County, so not far away. And you can find probably within an hour 15, 20 articles, books, newspapers, websites, Facebook posts about how he gave money or he gave land for the Baptist church and school and cemetery. But if you look at his will, in that same sentence where he gave that land, the beginning of it says, "And to my daughter Suzanne, I give the child that my Black woman is big with," if it's a girl, and if it's a boy, it goes to my son Sam. So he's giving away a fetus. I mean, this is absolutely insane, and it drives me nuts.
And how did it make you feel when you found out about that discovery?
I cried. I just cried, and it's like, how can I be related to these people? And then he talks about giving land to the church. So we have 15 or 20 different people that obviously went and looked at that will and ignored the first part of the sentence. We've got to teach real history. We've got to tell real stories. I mean, the idea that, you know, Black people were enslaved doesn't tell the emotional story. I mean, you know, it's just like they're one-dimensional characters.
Right.
I've spent my time since then telling these stories about my ancestors. I had remembrance ceremonies for enslaved people where we named names. And that's the history that we're just trying to gloss over. It's a history that, you know, Glenn Youngkin is trying to gloss over, pretending that that it wasn't as bad as it obviously was.
Right. Absolutely. And we thank you so much, and thank you for just your transparency and your service and making this all possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, we're meeting with McKenzie Miller this morning here and her beautiful dog, Ox. McKenzie, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, you're welcome. Happy to be here.
Thank you. So what does it mean to be here, to be supportive here of the Black Lives Matter Vigil for Action?
That's a loaded question. It means everything, you know. It gets me emotional, to be honest. It's the least I can do. Being raised in a very privileged background and being best friends with my black brothers and sisters, and knowing but not knowing the disparities in the, like, they don't live a privileged life. Nobody who has black skin, even if they quote unquote, you know, have privilege, they're still discriminated toward, and that doesn't bode well with me, and never has, never will. So this is the least I can do to let them know that they are seen, they are heard, and I stand with them. But this is just the beginning.
Absolutely. And what does it mean when you be able to come out here for these vigils, especially in light of what happened with all the tragedies in 2020 during the Freedom Summer and so many lives lost? When you first heard about these vigils, what was it like to be here and start meeting different individuals?
Yeah, I guess I was pulled in from the NAACP and my friends that I'd met around that, and saying like, hey, there's this thing going on, and I was like, oh, cool. And my response to that, well, why did we have to wait until George Floyd died to do this? Mm-hmm. And it's like, but then my black brothers and sisters, like Taryn Weaver, would say the same thing, was like, this was our wake-up call. Like, this was our flood moment. This was our, so I feel that too, but like, I've never been okay with racism, like, my whole life. And so it just breaks me that, like, we have to be out here. And the counter people have been coming out for almost a year and a half now, and the fact that it's still happening, there's lynchings happening all across this country, I don't know, maybe on a weekly basis, a daily basis, and the people that pass by here will put their thumb down or, you know, speed through, people that I know personally, doctors, you know, people that I've grown up with, and or there's people that just purposely avoid the square until after. And so all that stuff is like mind. It doesn't, you know, it's something that I have a hard time with, but I deal with. And being raised here, it's hard. Yeah, it's a hard thing to swallow.
But you are seeing progress, would you say?
Yes, we are. I mean, obviously the counter protesters, the ones that want to be seen, you know, there's ones that, you know, obviously they have support and they show up every day to give them a thumbs up and go through here. But our support is wavelengths, as you can see today, tidal waves, much bigger, and we will never stop. And this is just the beginning, and I hope that we continue. And like I said to these people a couple weeks ago, we've been out here for now 100 weeks, but this might be a really big horse country, but this is what's going to continue us to the next future. This is what's going to take us into the next century.
Wonderful. McKenzie Miller, thank you so much for all you do, and continue working, no pressure. Thank you so much. And you as well, Oz, thank you. So now we're going to go into the courthouse, and we will meet with Dr. Ellsworth Weaver, so we're going to get more from him and over to get an interview as the rain continues to begin to fall. We are here at the historic Warrenton Courthouse for the 100th Black Lives Matter Vigil for Action. We'll be right back.
First of all, good morning to all.
Good morning. Good morning.
I definitely applaud the purpose of us being here today. 100 consecutive weeks. Let's give a shout out. I know each of us have not been here for every weekend. That's understandable. But what I want to say is this. Whether we're here physically, but our hearts and our spirits were, And one of the things I've learned when we talk about unity, and when we talk about being on one accord, we have to be careful of how and what we are unifying ourselves to be part of. We can have negative unity as well as positive unity. But I'm so happy today that I see on the expressions of all of your faces, including mine, that we're here for the purpose of motivating action. Now, what do I mean? What do I have to do? The main thing is have the love of God in your heart. And once that has been impregnated in your system, you have no problem in fulfilling the mission that we all have been assigned to do. The mission of seeking justice. The mission of preparing our lives that we can help others find better jobs, better housing. And let's not leave out health. And let me put an asterisk beside health by saying mental health. Mental health is running rampant. So therefore, we as an organization of people who are willing to fight and run to the end to help others who have been denied to come forth and have a better life. That's what these vigils have been all about. It wasn't that we wanted to stand out here with a sign saying this, that, or the other. There was a message, or there should have been a message, in each of our presentations. Each one of those banners that we carried was sending a message. Well, the question is, do you really believe in the message? Or was it just something to do on Saturday morning and come out and shake hands with friends and people you haven't seen for a while? What I'm saying in essence is this. Don't let those 100 weekends of the past, consecutive weekends of the past, stop today. There's a song that someone sang some years ago that says, "We've only just begun." That's what we're doing today. We are just beginning. Anyone who thinks that the struggle of yesterday is not going to be here tomorrow, you're wrong. But I want to leave this thought with you. Regardless of how much we project into the future, how much we plan for the future. Remember, we can only plan for the future. Because has anyone in here ever lived in the future to come back and tell us what it was like? No. We can only go to one point, and that is what we call right now. And see what happens with right now. This right now that I'm talking about is now history because it's the new right now here. Let's take advantage of right now and continue the fight that we started. There is always going to be a need for equality. There's always going to be a need for equal rights. Just look around. Look around. You remember the old saying of the glass ceiling? Why was such a thing created? Why do we have a glass ceiling if we have equal rights and equal opportunities? Again, I'm going to say to you, thank you for being here. I hope God blesses each of you in a mighty way. And that all our organizations that have been sponsors will continue the mission of helping those who need. Let's break down those barriers of voting rights. Let's break down those rights and privileges of not being able to marry who you like. We have a lot of walls to tear down. The wall of Jericho is around us at all times. But until we march around, until we blow those trumpets, until we stomp our feet, until we yell and yell and yell, that wall will never come down. And that's what I'm saying to you, ladies and gentlemen, my friends. Remember, the wall of Jericho can come down.
Yeah, we just heard from Dr. Ellsworth Weaver here at the historic Warrenton Courthouse. We're going to try to catch an interview with him and very more as we are here at the 100th Black Lives Matter Vigil for Action. And so, as you're seeing all the congregants are getting ready to disperse, but as Dr. Weaver was saying, you know, and when in the call to action that he was saying that, you know, we have to continue this battle for civil rights. We have to continue the battle for justice, have to continue the battle for equity, so that all may be able to experience that justice, freedom, and liberty for all. So from this, we're going to try to see if we can meet with Dr. Weaver here for just a moment, talk with him for a few minutes, and just get a few conception about what things are going on in the community and what we can move from there. So you'll follow with us, and we want to continue on. Excuse me, ma'am. And so we are here live here at the historic Warrenton Courthouse. And so I want to get a chance to talk with Dr. Weaver. Dr. Weaver, John Reid of PD16 Perspective, sir. How are you this morning?
Doing well.
It's an honor, sir, to talk with you this morning. Thank you so much for a very powerful, poignant, and on-time speech today. So, sir, what does it mean to be able to speak here in the courthouse this morning to encourage the people to continue to fight for action?
One of the main reasons that I am such a strong advocate of continuing the fight is realizing also the personal strives and strikes I had to go through. Living basically in a segregated society was a challenge. But as we move ahead and laws change, that's great. But the hearts of man has to change accordingly. And until man's heart changes, we're going to see very, very few sincere changes as far as overall society is concerned. Yes, we can tolerate, but do we really mean it? And that's why we see nowadays the thing of white privileges popping up, just incidents as far as the law is concerned, and just life in general. I think we still have a struggle or a challenge ahead of us that needs to be addressed. Cannot sweep it under the rug anymore. Because eventually, the more we sweep under the rug, the bigger the pile gets. And then eventually what's going to happen? We're going to have to move the rug. Absolutely. So we're in the process now of moving the rug so that all of these stuffs, and I use that loosely, stuffs that have been swept under the rug will no longer exist, will be visible.
Indeed. And Dr. Weaver, if I may, as you said in your speech, it has to go beyond just holding signs and having social gatherings. What does that look like, especially here in Fauquier County?
Here in Fauquier County, my perception is this. People become motivated by what they see and what applies to them, okay? So merely holding up a sign is one thing. But if I don't get out there and vote, that's another thing. So that's where the power is, in knowing that each of us as individuals has the right to make changes and to demand changes. Because why should I continually be swept under the rug? And that's my viewpoint as far as these signs are concerned. There's a message, as I said, but let the message be one that's applicable. Let the message be one that people can understand the value as far as each individual is concerned. Okay? We have not because we ask not. Okay? And if we don't ask, what do you expect? If you don't push on the wall, do you expect it to fall?
Absolutely, Dr. Ellsworth Weaver, thank you for all you do in the community. Thank you for your leadership, sir, and for your service. And we're making those changes that bring the walls of Jericho down, sir. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. Thank you, sir. Bless you. We want to just kind of emphasize some of the things that have been happening here this morning. And again, it's been 100 vigils for action. There's been people who have wanted to come out, speak, but not just speak, as Dr. Ellsworth was saying, but about coming out and letting people know this needs to change. The systemic racism systems need to change. Oh, excuse me, ma'am, I'm so sorry. And what we want to do as we continue to come out, as people come out to give you the speak, come out to vote, go out to your school boards, make sure local legislators know, and make sure that history is being taught as well. You see in this building where there has been a lot of decisions that necessarily went against the lives of black people. That being said, now it's being used as a voice for justice. We want to thank each and every one of you for this wonderful, powerful, life-changing event today. This has been the 100 Black Lives Matter Vigil for Action. May it not stop with just the holding of signs and the posts on hashtags on social media. But what we can do is take a lesson from what we've seen. And what we've seen today is there is an opportunity for that change. And by doing so, we can all make a difference because black lives truly matter.